The third feature of democracy is that democracy should be based on one person, one vote, one value. Democracy is based on a fundamental principle of political equality. Rich or poor, literate or illiterate, whatever may be your status in our society, you are equal with any other person to occupy any political post in India or in democracy. In democracy, each citizen must have one vote, one value. It means a single person will have a single vote and that vote will have one value. But this is a condition of democratic country. But look into a non-democratic country. The situation is very different. Saudi Arabia, you know that it's a 100% Muslim country, Islamic country. Until 2015, in Saudi Arabia, women did not have the right to vote. It means the Saudi Arabian government did not give right to vote to women in that country. So there's no democracy over there. Estonia. Estonia is a very small country in Eastern Europe, bordered to Russia. And Estonia has made its citizenship rules in such a way that people belonging to Russian minority find it difficult to get right to vote. In Estonia, there are some people who are basically from Russia, and during the time of election, Estonian government does not give right to vote to Russian minority staying in Estonia. So next one, look into Fiji. Fiji is a very small country in Pacific Ocean near to America. In Fiji, we can divide people into two categories. One is original Fijians, second is Indian Fijians. So what's the difference between them? Who are Indian Fijians? Indian Fijians are people, they had migrated from India to Fiji maybe centuries back to do work in their plantations or whatever way may be. But during the time of election, the Fijian government discriminate Indian Fijian. Indians in Fiji are not given equal right during the time of an election. Means in Fiji, the electoral system is such that the vote of an indigenous Fijian has more value than that of an Indian Fijian. When or during the time of an election, when people go for vote, when an indigenous Fijian vote, one vote, that vote will have more value, whereas an Indian Fijian goes to vote, he may have only one vote, but value is also one. Whereas Fijian, one original Fijian, when he votes, his vote may have three or five values. So, democratic government treat all citizens as equal, whereas non-democratic government sometimes treats people differently. At the same time, some democratic government treats each citizen in different way. So we can say, anyhow, the one of the most important features of democracy is purely based on one person, one vote, one value. That is the spirit of democracy. The fourth feature of democracy is rule of law and respect for rights. Zimbabwe attained independence from white minority rule in 1980. Zimbabwe is a small country in Africa which got independence in 1980 from white people, white government. Since that time, the country is being ruled by a political party named ZANU-PF, which was a party that led the freedom struggle. And its leader was Robert Mugabe. Since independence, he and his party controls the country. But Robert Mugabe came into power as a democratic leader. But later on, he has changed his mind and he also changed the system of government in Zimbabwe. Let us see what happened over there. Its leader, Robert Mugabe, ruled the country since independence. Elections were held regularly and always won by ZANU-PF. President Mugabe was popular but also used unfair practices in elections. Over the years, his government changed the constitution several times to increase the power of president and make him less accountable. Opposition party workers were harassed and their meeting disrupted. Public protests and demonstrations against the government were declared illegal. There was a law that limited the right to criticize the president. Shortly, we can say that after becoming the president, he began to misuse his powers. So, for the namesake, every time, maybe for fourth year or fifth year, he used to conduct election, and in that elections, he used to manipulate all the process and to make his uh, government and work easier, he has changed the constitution many times and he has increased the power of his presidency. He has also made that he is not that much answerable to the people. He can take any decision and he never allowed opposition party leaders or opposition parties to work in Zimbabwe, and people cannot criticize him. If they do so, they may be sent to jail, and president has absolute power in Zimbabwe. Here you can see Robert Mugabe's photo and the banners of his party ZANU-PF. On the other side, you can see different types of human rights. Human rights. The case study from Zimbabwe shows that popular approval of the rulers is necessary in democracy, but it is not sufficient. There should be sufficient room for normal political activities, including political opposition, in the period before elections. This requires that the state should respect some basic rights of the citizen. People should be free to think, to have opinions, to express these in public, to form associations, to protest and take other political actions. Everyone should be equal in the eyes of law. These rights must be protected by an independent organization. A democratic government rules within the limit set by constitutional laws and citizens' rights, which means that a democratic government must respect citizen and citizens' rights. People should have freedom to express their opinion, participate in political activities. They should be allowed to form associations, organizations, and there should be freedom of speech. The people should be allowed to form political parties and freely contest an election and oppose the government which is in power. So, in such a way, if everything is working properly, we can say that country is purely a democratic country. So, one thing we must understand that in a democracy, a government can continue in power as long as the people trust that government. As long as the people have faith in that government. Otherwise, the government should be out. The summary of definition: democracy. Democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the people and they take all the major decisions. Elections offer a choice and fair opportunity to the people to change the current rulers. This choice and opportunity is available to all the people on an equal basis, and the exercise of this choice leads to a government limited by basic rules of the constitution and rights of citizens. So, we can say that in democracy, all major decisions are taken by elected leaders, and also in democracy, we are getting a chance to throw our rulers out and elect new set of rulers. And also, we are getting an opportunity to participate in politics on equal basis. Last one, the powers of the governments are limited by the constitution. The government cannot misuse its powers. We know that democracy is the best form of government. Some people oppose it while some people support it. So there are two types of arguments. One is for democracy and another is against democracy. Some people support democracy, some people oppose democracy. So I am going to explain arguments against democracy right now. Some people say that democracy is not a good form of government. Why? Leaders keep on changing in democracy. This leads to instability. Second, democracy is all about political competition and power play. There is no scope for morality in democracy. Third, so many people have to be consulted in a democracy that it leads to delays. Fourth, elected leaders do not know the best interest of the people. Fifth, democracy leads to corruption. Sixth, ordinary people do not know what is good for them, so they just go and vote for some particular leaders or party. In short, we can say that democracy or in democracy, leaders are keep on changing. So leaders do not be in power not more than 5 years. Every 5 years, leaders are changing. And also, we have seen that during the time of an election, political parties are abusing each other and they are competing like anything, and they sometimes they will be physical fight rather than ideological fight. And third one, in democracy, immediate decision cannot be taken. Why so? Because before taking a decision, so many people to be consulted. And finally, we can say that the leaders, after coming to power, they completely forget the people who had voted for the leaders. And one more thing I would like to say that we can see everywhere corruption, corruption, corruption. And some people say that in democracy, corruption is always highlighted. So democracy leads to corruption. So because of all these reasons, some people say that democracy is not a good form of government. Some people say that democracy is the best form of government. Let us see why so. First one, a democratic government is better government because it is more accountable form of government. Accountable means answerable to the people. Second, democracy improves the quality of decision making, which means that before taking a decision, leaders keep on discussing with the many people, and after discussing with the many people, the best decisions are taken. Third, democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflict. In democracy, sudden decisions are not taken. Before taking decisions, different sections of people are consulted. Leaders will talk to different group of people, different leaders. Finally, all differences, conflicts will be resolved very amicably, very easily. And fourth one, democracy enhances the dignity of citizens. Democracy is the only one form of government which treats or respects rights of citizens. You are treated as citizens, not as subject or slaves. Fifth one, it allows us to correct its own mistake. Suppose we have chosen a government right now. That government is not working properly. We cannot throw that government out immediately. So we need to wait maybe other 4 years or 5 years of time. After that, in the next election, we can throw this government out and bring a new government into power. So whatever mistakes we make in democracy, here we can correct our mistakes. So because of all these 5 points, some people say that democracy is the best form of government. So these are the arguments for democracy. Let me explain you the each point that was part of arguments for democracy. A democratic government is a better government because it is more accountable form of government. So let us see why. In 1958 to 1961, there was a famine in China. It was the worst famine in the history of the world. Nearly 3 crore people died in this famine. During those days, India's economic condition was not much better than China. Yet, India did not have a famine of the kind China had. In China, there was no democracy, whereas in India, we have democracy. Some democratic government deals with the situation differently. It is answerable to the people. In China, there was no democracy, so even if even 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, or 5 crores of people die, nothing will happen to the Chinese government, or nobody will question them. Whereas in India, it was a time we just got independence, but our government was purely a democratic government chosen by the people. So our government dealt the problem in a very different way, and our government saved lives of millions and millions of people. Why? Because our government is answerable to the people. Democracy improves the quality of decision making. Why or how? Democracy is based on consultation and discussion. A democratic decision always involves many people, discussions, and meetings. When a large number of people put their heads together, they are able to point out possible mistakes in any decision. Which means that in democracy, many people are consulted, and their opinions are taken into account. So when all those opinions are taken into account, so there will be no mistake. The best decisions are taken for the benefit of the people. Democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflict. How and why? In any society, people are bound to have differences of opinions and interest. The preferences of one group can clash with those of other groups. Whichever group is more powerful will dictate its terms and others will have to accept that. But that would lead to resentment and unhappiness. Different groups may not be able to live together for long in such a way. Democracy provides the only peaceful solution to this problem. In democracy, no one is a permanent winner, no one is a permanent loser, which means that in a democratic country, there will be different groups of people. They speak different languages, they believe in different religion, they belong to different caste or ethnic groups. Always there will be differences between people or conflict between the people over different issues. But whichever group is majority, they will try to dominate over minority. So if the conflict take place, it may go for a civil war or any type of bloodshed, which should not take place. So democracy is the only one solution for this kind of problems. Democracy always treats every section as equal, and whenever there is a problem, democratic governments will sit with those groups and discuss their problems, find a solution for it, and finally the problems are resolved. So shortly we can say that in a democracy, no one is a permanent winner or no one is a permanent loser. Today's winner may be tomorrow's loser, and today's loser will be tomorrow's winner. So democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflict. Democracy enhances the dignity of citizens. How and why? Democracy is based on the principle of political equality, on recognizing that the poorest and the least educated has the same status as rich and the educated. People are not subject of a ruler, they are the rulers themselves. Even when they make mistakes, they are responsible for their conduct, which means that in democracy, everyone is treated as equal, irrespective of your richness, poorness, educational status, or whatever other differences. Everyone is equal. Your rights are protected and you are treated as a citizen, not as a slave. You are not a slave of your ruler. You are actually a good citizen of your country. You have all the rights. In democracy, citizens are protected, their rights are guaranteed, and no one can take away your rights. Democracy allows us to correct its own mistakes. Why and how? There is no guarantee that mistakes cannot be made in democracy. No form of government can guarantee that. The advantage in a democracy is that such mistakes cannot be hidden for a long time. There is a space for public discussion on these mistakes, and there is a room for correction. Either the rulers have to change their decisions or the rulers can be changed. This cannot happen in a non-democratic government. In short, we can say that in democracy, mistakes may take place, but we have the right to correct our mistakes. So sometime or mostly democratic governments are known for corruption. If so, we have the right to change the decisions of the government. We can change the rulers even. So nothing to worry. Democracy gives us all the right to make our life comfortable, our government proper. So, is only one form of the government in the world which allows its citizens to correct their mistakes